you can be only part of the Discord if you own the Proof NFT. And I don't know how big he thought it would get, but like it started out this January and now the floor price is at 75 ETH. So it's basically been like ballistic. And the reason why the floor price is so high is you get insane amount of value by being in Proof. Like I hear about things I would never heard about before. I get whitelisted for things that I would never otherwise get whitelisted. And I think that's really the power of like joining a group or building your own group, that you can get into things that is very hard to get into just by yourself, unless you're really spend all your time finding these things or you're super well connected. So now we come to the learnings. So I think there's only 5 learnings I have taken away so far. And the first one is like decide on the purpose. We proved the purpose was very early on that we focus on art. So you know, at the moment we don't do music, we don't do, I don't know, all kinds of things. We really focus on art and how do you say, like paths, like kind of, yeah, like things like Proof. You know, for example, we invested in Prement last week. What's actually also like different from Proof to, for example, Flamingo DAO, is that we don't invest everything as a group. So I didn't have to put a chunk of money in, and then the group always invests together. But everything, we hear about things, and then everybody invests their own money. So everybody does their own research, but together as a group we get whitelisted, and then everybody can decide themselves whether they want to join this or not. And I think that's quite cool. It takes a bit of work on the collector's side. Like I have to basically be in the Discord almost every day to make sure I don't miss anything important. And then obviously be there for the mint dates and so on. It means sometimes I have to leave the dinners to make sure I'm home, to be minting stuff. But other than that, I think it's quite cool that I can basically do what I want and I don't have to go with the decisions of everybody else. Like for example, I am in another group where it's more like an investment DAO where we do investments together. And sometimes I really don't like a project, but everybody else votes yes, and then I have to invest in it. So I much prefer the Proof model where I'm free to do whatever I think is good. So build a purpose and think about what is the value of the group. Like, is this group coming together to make money or just to find out about artists, or all of the above? Like with Proof, it's all of the above and more. Like, so they're really gonna build this into like a whole metaverse. And they have big plans for it. No idea whether that's actually going to happen or not. But for the time being, just the value as a collector is amazing. That you find out about good stuff, you get whitelisted, and so on. Then, how does it make sense to have a token or not, or to make it basically gated? Because as you probably know, Flamingo DAO or Tribe, they don't have a token. You kind of have to know somebody to get into the ecosystem. With Proof, anybody could buy it online, and until today, you can just go on OpenSea and buy it if you want to spend it. But at the beginning, it started at 1 ETH, so it was very affordable for a lot of people, and I quite like that. So I'm really a big fan of Dutch auctions and making it accessible to anyone, because you never know who's going to join the group. And we have a couple of really, really interesting people that got in very early that are just really, really true fans of the art. So we don't just have people there for financial incentives, but a very, very diverse group. That's why my learning was a Dutch auction to start off with an NFT. That's a Dutch auction is quite a good idea, because you will just have a much, much more diverse group of people rather than just people that are well connected or that are whales already and so on. The third thing that Proof really did well early on was to invite artists into the group. So they actually kept a few NFTs at the side that they did not sell on the public market to be able to bring artists into the group. And we have some artists that were only on Tezos before and never did anything on ETH, and they're very indie, and now they're part of this group, and they bring new indie artists in and tell us about this stuff. So I think if you are building a group, definitely keep some tokens there for the artists and really build real relationship with the artists. Because that is where the big alpha and where the big value comes in the long run. That you just find out, because artists know artists, right? They just know the good stuff earlier than anyone else. And I think that has been one of the really, really, really big values to everyone in the collective, that the artists are there and they're also very active. Like, not all the artists are super active, but we have a few, like, even quite famous artists that are pretty active in the group, which is just amazing. Then 4, should you gate your community? So proof is gated. That means you can only get into the Discord if you actually own the NFT. And I personally love that, because I'm also part of, for example, the apes. And the ape Discord is just insane. It's so confusing. Anybody can get into that Discord. And there's so much spam and so much like bullshit and so many people just talking about the price. And it's very hard to get a value out of that Discord, for me at least. Whereas in proof, it's very easy to overview. It's very easy to find out about stuff. And that's why I think, go token gating, or at least having specific channels that are only for people that own the NFT does create a better UX for the group altogether. So I do think it's a very good idea. Plus, it's more fun for the collective members, because if you are building a good collective and like proof the value is rising, that's like fun for everybody, right? That like everybody likes having a valuable NFT. And then 5, unfortunately, I think to build a really successful collectors group does take a lot of work. Like the proof team I think they started out with 3 people full-time on this, and they have really spent a lot of, like all of their time, full-time, on creating the community that is active to the extent that it is, bringing the artists in, but also like making sure we get whitelisted, because the artists don't come and say, oh, I want to whitelist proof, right? At the beginning it was us going out to the artists and being like, hey, we're this group of 1,000 collectors and we would like to join your drop. So nowadays, now that proof is more well known, the artists often come to us. But at the beginning it was not that way, and it took a lot of hustling and to get us into there. And I assume even to today, it doesn't all come by itself. And I want to show you also 2 projects that they did. They did 2 internal projects, which led to proof being so valuable. And I want to show you, and they were really a lot of work, to give you an idea. So Grails was the first one, and it was like the coolest NFT project ever. Like literally, it was so much fun. So basically Kevin got 20 artists, and he told us they were famous. So 20 famous artists, but he did not tell us who they were. And then he showed the art, so they made the art public, and we had to choose an artwork, but we did not know who the artist was. And some of the art were by absolute indie artists, basically worth nothing. And there was some art by the likes of Tim Ferriss and Tyler Hobbs, Lava Labs, that ended up selling for 120 ETH after the mint. And so then like this crazy race ensued, and everybody was guessing who's which artist, and people literally spent hundreds of hours on detective work trying to find out who could this be, who could that be. I ended up, being so overwhelmed with the choice that I just chose a grail that I liked. I liked the image. It was a monster, so I kind of figured it was Lucresh. And I did end up selling it for 7 ETH, which is not the worst in the world, even though I would have preferred to have the 180, 120 ETH one by Tyler Hobbs. But putting that together, bringing all of the artists in, and then pulling off this Grails project, I think that alone was like 3 months full-time work for at least 3-4 people, and it did take Kevin's network. But I think that really was what put proof on the map, where everybody, where there's so much shouting and talk about it, and people were like, wow, what's going on there? And I think it's also where then everybody in proof was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, I'm not selling my proof, I'm not ever selling this thing. And that obviously then increased the floor, because no one wants to sell their proof, because the next Grails is coming next I think there's two Grails drops every year. So they're gonna do something like this twice a year, so it's like amazing value. And the other thing that is happening next month is moonbirds. So basically, because now the floor of proof is 75 ETH, basically normal people have been kind of priced out. And Kevin had, like, there's a lot of proof podcast listeners who also want to participate. So they decided, like to have a new PFP project. So like the apes have the mutant apes that are, where you have more, there's more of these, and they come in at a lower price. Proof will have the moonbirds, and they're getting some really, really famous friends of Kevin involved. And again, the moonbirds, well, it's not entirely disclosed what the utility will be, but they will have their own channel in the Proof Discord with their own, where you can only have access if you have the NFT, and there will be other, all kinds of. Basically, the moonbirds, as I understand, will be the access to the Proof metaverse, and you'll be able to stake them and get some money back for them. And they do all kinds of funky stuff, but it's not really disclosed yet what's going to happen. But pulling something like that off a successful PFP project, most of you can imagine, takes a lot of work. And again, there's a reason why no one wants to sell their proof, because all the proof holders will get 2 more moonbirds for free, which is amazing, right? Only in Web3 do you just get given something like that for free. Righty, so the takeaway from being in Proof, and Proof really only exists since beginning of this year. I was lucky to somehow hear about it. And if you put in the work, and it does take work to build a successful collectors group, but if you are willing to put in the work, I think you can get benefits that are insane, because Proof isn't the only successful collectors group. There's many out there that are discovering artists, that are collecting artists, that are helping artists to thrive, while obviously finding amazing talent and making very, very good amounts of alpha. If you do not have time to build your own collectors group, that is probably the best idea to join one. There were several here in the room that you can probably ask, or you can have a look at the Moonbirds project that's coming in April. And yeah, if you have other questions, I'll be around outside afterwards.